this section, we'll discuss cover letters. Often clients ask me whether cover letters are required and whether people still send them. And my response tends to be that if they are very seriously interested in a role, then a cover letter is almost non-negotiable because it will help them achieve the following objectives. So first and most importantly, it demonstrates a serious interest in the role, and thereby will automatically set them apart from candidates who didn't put in the additional effort. Second, it gives them an opportunity to elaborate on relevant experiences. We know that the resume or the CV serves as a high-level overview of their career and their accomplishments. So the cover letter gives them the opportunity to delve into a bit more detail. For any of their accomplishments or projects they worked on, initiatives they implemented that are directly to the role and might be of interest to the reader. Other information that you may want to address in the cover letter just includes any relevant certifications or qualifications that the client recently received. If they're looking to switch career paths or move into a new role, an explanation of why that is the case and why they would still be able to jump into the role and hit the ground running would also be something that we would want to discuss. And lastly, in the cover letter, that's where we're going to address any potential red flags that may come up for the hiring manager. So things such as gaps in employment, the need for a visa sponsorship if we're dealing with an international candidate, an upcoming move to the employer city. So if the position is based in LA and someone currently lives in Chicago, just putting in a brief sentence about how they're relocating next month to give recruiters comfort that they'll be in the area and are a local candidate can be very helpful. And lastly, if they have a non-traditional career path and have been hopping all over the place, having some sort of explanation that ties together their career path with some common thread is something that I like to use. When writing cover letters, the most common mistakes I see candidates make are the following. So first, we have keeping the focus on them and not the employer. The purpose of the cover letter itself is to sell an employer on how the client will be able to help their organization achieve the goals laid out in the job description. So we don't want to be focusing on what the candidate hopes to gain or learn from the role, but instead we're really trying to show the hiring manager that they'll be able to jump in, hit the ground running, and get the job done, using examples from their past as evidence that they'll be able to succeed. Second, sometimes candidates just don't tie their content into the target role. So again, focusing on themselves and what they've achieved without making those explicit connections between how those achievements are relevant to the reader. So if we're just listing out a bunch of achievements, but not telling the recruiter how the client is going to leverage those skill sets to make an impact in their particular organization, it may or may not be immediately obvious to the reader, but what we want to do is just make sure we're tying things together and making those things explicit. And lastly, sending the same cover letter for every position, that's something we don't want to do. So even when we are preparing generic cover letter templates for clients, we will include areas for them to customize, whether it's with the position title, the company name, or a few lines as to why they're interested in a particular role at a particular company, to really give off that impression of putting effort and thought into the letter itself. If we think back to the pyramid principles that we discussed earlier on, you may remember that we talked about how the main recommendation of the cover letter is essentially that the client will be a good fit for the role. Then we have the supporting arguments, which are going to be the 3 body paragraphs, and the supporting data, insights, conclusions, where we're laying out examples from their work experience. In practice, we may have a topic sentence that says, I would be a strong fit for the role based on my ability to improve financial performance, lead complex projects, and manage remote teams, right? So those would be the topic sentences, and then we'll go into detail on that. So that's just a quick reminder, because this will be applicable as we talk through the standard approaches we use to write cover letters. And those are a category-based approach and then a chronological approach. So you'll have two separate templates for each of these approaches, and visually they look a little bit different. The purpose, of course, is always similar. It's just how we're going to lay out our arguments that will be a little bit different. So let's start with the category-based approach. The easiest way to explain this is really to use examples, so let's just dive right in. If we have a topic sentence here that says, I would be a strong fit for the role based on my financial analysis, project management, and global team leadership skills that I demonstrated throughout my career with Goldman Sachs and Bank of America. Our categories would be financial analysis, project management, and then global team leadership. What we'll do then is derive specific examples from the client's experience where we are discussing each of these three categories. So what is a time when they really made an impact in the area of financial analysis? What is an initiative they implemented for project management? And how large was the team they were managing? And how did they manage to make a global team successful? That's how we would structure that category-based argument. And on a template, this is what it looks like visually. So we'll have the salutation up at the top, then we'll have the first overview paragraph where we're laying out our purpose for writing, as well as the three experiences or skills that we'll be addressing. And then each of the body paragraphs will be laid out in this bullet point format. So in bold at the beginning, we'll have the skill set itself, and then we'll dive into the examples and explanation. And then lastly, at the end, we'll explain very briefly why the client is interested in that particular role at the given company, and close off the letter, and there we go. So this layout, we want to make it very easy to skim, easy to digest, and quick for readers to just get the key information they're looking for. So trying to avoid very bulky, long paragraphs and blocks of text. The second approach is chronological. So as you may infer, we're just going to go in reverse chronological order as we discuss the client's experience and why it's relevant. Our topic sentence here, I would be a strong fit for the role based on 25 years of finance leadership experience in the UK and US with Goldman Sachs, Bank of America, and UBS. Our supporting arguments, again, will be outlined very similarly. So we'll start with the current experience and then work our way backwards. The only difference here is that we're going to break out the first role into the three achievements that will be outlined in bullet point format. And then the other two, so the previous experience as well as an outline of their early career or summary of any additional qualifications they have, will be described in paragraph format. The reasoning behind this is that if we are going in reverse chronological order and we have a client who is working in finance, for example, their most recent role is likely going to be where they are the most senior and where they're making the biggest impact. So using this approach and breaking out their current experience using bullet points is just going to give us a bit more space to convey all of the information we need. And here is what that looks like in practice. So we have the salutation, opening paragraph, again, where we're discussing the purpose for writing. But instead of listing out the three areas of expertise, we're going to focus on just one area. So based on my experience in finance with Goldman Sachs, Bank of America, and UBS, I'm confident that I would be a strong fit. And then we'll have the first body paragraph that provides an overview of their current role. 3 bullet points, could be anywhere from 2 to 4 really, that outline their key achievements or contributions in the role. And then tie that together with a brief statement explaining how the current role and achievements are relevant to the target position. And then the second 2 body paragraphs will be an overview of their previous role, and then lastly, an overview of their early career and any other qualifications. And we'll wrap it up with an explanation of why that company and why that role. So we'll take a look at a few examples of both the category-based and chronological approach in a bit more detail. And I'll use that color coding format again to really make it explicit as to how we're applying the main point, example, explanation, formula throughout the cover letter as well, because we do want to keep this structure very tight, succinct, and to the point, which will allow us to eliminate excess words, convey the reader, convey the message that we're looking to get across to the reader, and do so in a skimmable format that, as I said before, is just easy to digest and makes it more likely that a recruiter will actually take the time to